All right, here we are again at the Hats of the 20th Century Museum, Hats and More. And we had been talking about the Merry Widow hat, and I thought, well, let's just start in again. We're here, let's do it. So, I first started out by saying that this hat had been called a Gainsborough, like the type of big black hats in his paintings of the 1700s. But when a big black hat was worn in the operetta Merry Widow in 1907, it became wildly popular again, and this time being called a Merry Widow. It was usually dark, usually had feathers and flowers both, very big hat. The men hated them because they were so big, and honestly, it turned into a big joke fest with postcards. Here we go. I'm going to hold this up. Let's go to this side. Here I have a few old postcards making fun of the size of a Merry Widow hat. We don't need to read the jokes necessarily, but they're pretty cute. There's a man suggesting she goes to the freight elevator. There's another one. It takes 4 people to put the hat on. It's so huge. And there she is in the theater, people wishing that she could look into a hat like that instead of them having to do it. So that's just a few postcards, and then I've enlarged another, but they were so big, and as I said, men hated them. Here's an old postcard that was made into a current day's greeting card, which is kind of cute. I don't know if it says anything, but got it? Alrighty. Him trying to survive a ride in a bus or a train with her. And here's another one that has a cute little poem. This is a 1908 postcard. I have all the cash that I can use. My late hubby's will fixes that. And now there's no one left to complain the next time I want to buy a Merry Widow hat. Technically, though, you didn't have to be a widow to want one of these big black hats. Okay, they were wonderful. The crowns were also something that was now starting to get large, oversized on ladies' hats. And a large crown will always tell you you're looking at a hat from the Edwardian period. And the crown on this one is rather good size. Rows and rows of horsehair lace again. And something else that got bigger, make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. The only reason we could imagine that the crowns got big was to kind of, I've never really gotten the straight story on that, but I would imagine the size of the Gibson girls' hairdo is kind of why the crowns got bigger, as it was with the flat wool tweed cap, to kind of keep up with the size of the head, see? They started making the crowns bigger. That was the Gibson girl again. So the little 5-inch bonnet pins that we had in the beginning of the 1900s had now evolved to where they had to be long like this one. This one is 12 inches long and would do a good job of going through the crown, picking up some hair, and coming out the other side. And, I can't see, I guess, from where I'm at, but this long hat pin is safely contained within the edge of the brim. But the problems were arising when gals weren't choosing their hat pins correctly. There's all different sizes. But if they had a big favorite long one, as on this little Edwardian straw hat, they had a big long one that they loved, and it stuck out the side beyond the brim, it could actually injure people. And it said that enough people were injured on crowded streets and busy buses that some cities even passed finial laws that you had to cover the end of your long hat pin with a finial. I think most people know what a finial is, but a little metal cap on the end. So that was an interesting thing I found out about hat pins. Okay, so it all brought on by the large crown of the Edwardian period. So now which hat do I want to do first? Alright, let's just do this one here. The large, I've got feathers flying everywhere on these old hats. The large crown hat was fine for gals who had enough hair. Now, oh, here's a picture of an actual gal with the stylish hair of the day. Okay, just gorgeous, really. But for gals who didn't have a lot of hair and a real sturdy hairdo, the weight of the hat would keep pushing the hair down until it was finally around your nose. That just was not good. So something had to be done, and they come up with it. It was called a sizing ring. I put some paper behind it so you can see it better. So a sizing ring, or I'll just stick that right back on her maybe. A sizing ring could be purchased, or probably you could make it too, but I bet they purchased them mostly. They seem, the ones I find always seem kind of manufactured. Get the size of your hat and the size of your head and tack it in, and now you're ready to go with a hat that actually fits. And that is such a good idea that 20 years ago when I was finding these things out, I was thinking, oh man, they should have that nowadays, because in the 90s, they were selling hats again, 1990s, but only in one size. And gee whiz, people have big heads and little heads and everything. Well, by the end of the 90s, and as we get into 2000, they were doing it, by golly. They are coming up with something similar. So this is 100 years later, they have a little satin thing that you can pull your drawstring to the size of your actual head and keep your big hat up where you wanted it. So everything old is new again eventually. Seems, oh yes, this little gal, she's got another one of those items. Might take our hat, our sizing ring off. She's got feathers and flowers, kind of the usual fare, and then a bow, satin or very taffeta, very brittle bow, that is wired on both sides. You can see the wire is coming loose to keep the bow's arrangement. Now that's another thing. Who would have thought they had wired ribbon that long ago? But we've reinvented it, and now we have wired ribbon. So everything comes back if it's a good idea. Okay, now let's talk about, well, let's take that one off, it's closer. Let's talk about these weird serpentine shaped hats. They like to sweep these large brimmed hats, sweep the brims upward into weird serpentine shapes. It really didn't make much difference how. And they secured it with hat pins and things and steamed them. I don't know, but somehow or another they got these peculiar shapes. And this one I thought was very neat because in the back it has a 1907 Indian head penny made into a stick pin. Now, I don't know if you're ever going to get that focused in, probably not. And if I polished it up, it'd probably show better. But you know, I really don't want to do that. But that's right on the money, 1907. So let's try that on her. Seems like I was going to say something else about that, but I can't think of it. This is a nice Milan straw, which was named for the city it was produced in, Milan, Italy. And the reason I know that is because I have a man's hat or two that clearly say Milan straw, and it's exactly the same as this. So, oh, I know, down here we have a picture. I just come up with a postcard the other day of a gal wearing a very similar upswept straw hat. Got it? There we go. Just to prove I'm not talking through my hat. But anyway, this is an old beauty. Here's another one. Another upswept brim hat. And you know what? Now see, I'm going to take the Merry Widow off. This one has got more of that new plastic that they're using. Some sort of plastic or synthetic. Delicate little hollow half beads all the way around the brim. That is really something. And they like the feathers that stuck straight up. It also has a little sizing ring. This has got the drawstring, kind of like the new hat. Huh, I hadn't noticed that. Boy, old is new again, isn't it? This has lost its lining, but it shows you how they even used buckram to support delicate straw. Let's try that on her. This has a very Edwardian look. There we go. I think from people seeing the Titanic, they might recall. I don't think that sizing ring's working for her. And you know, actually, as we went through the next decade, the 1910 decade, hats did start getting lower and lower. And it was kind of a good look. And they also knew how to turn brims up evenly. Yep, this one's got a gathered in the center lining, no hat sizing ring, so it must have gone for a gal that had plenty of hair. I think this one does fit on me, so I'm going to try it on me fairly well. I usually have enough hair. This is a gorgeous old beauty with lace all the way around and a silk bustle on the side. And golly, we're just about, how are we doing on time? Can you tell me?
5 left.
5 minutes and our video's still working. Okay, I'm going to bring this one up as another gorgeous old beaver felt. So look again here. This has nothing on the inside, no lining, no sizing ring or anything. Just fluffy, soft as a cat, beaver fur felt. A beautiful little hat that I just got as a bargain, as if I needed another hat. But you know, I'll always take another bargain. So there we go. Let's put that on her and give her a little spin for us. Tired, but still very nice looking. These hats have all had wonderful care in their storage. If you don't treat a hat right, it will not last. But if you treat them right, they will age beautifully. And they really give you the impression that 100 and some years ago isn't that long ago, when things still survive and they're still in wonderful shape. So since we still have time, I'm going to bring out one of the big, beautiful, as I said, the Merry Widow signaled the way for gorgeous, huge hats of the Edwardian period as we get into the 1910 decade, or towards that. This one has a sizing ring in it. I think it maybe fits her pretty well. Let me see if I'm getting it on just right. There we go. Yep. Beautiful brown, which is nice to see beaver in something besides black, with ribbon roses and velvet leaves all around and some beautiful plumage. Just gorgeous. I can't believe. Oh, you know what else I could tell you about? Just to fill in a show. It's kind of apropos of nothing, but when I was at a vintage antique clothing hat show where I couldn't afford a darn thing, I did find this hat that I used for costuming, and it was $40, which was, the feathers were clearly worth that. And it does have a nice look, although I did realize even that it isn't a hat from the old days. This is a hat from the 50s, because that's the type of hat inside you had in the 50s. But beautiful old hat with gorgeous old feathers. I don't like wearing the actual old hat ever. I used to dress up when I did my programs, and all my outfits were homemade copies, and the hats were reproductions. So I don't know, this is hard to be at the end and not have anything else out, but I'll tell you what, we'll refill these tables with hats of the 1910 period, and we'll continue on, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much.